we will be doing a lot more on this grammar book. We're going to do a lot more lessons on parts of speech and phrases and clauses. So if you've got this book, please don't worry. I'll be doing a lesson perhaps tomorrow on this theme, and we'll be doing a lot more than just one class. We'll be doing a lot of parts of speech and phrases and clauses. But this lesson is aimed at the TEFL students. So if you're here for vocabulary, you're in the right place. I mean, the grammar book is for TEFL students as well, and I really recommend, if you're already at an upper intermediate level, then please buy my grammar book, and you will perhaps learn some interesting ways to improve your use of English. You can get either of these books as a PDF. Just write your name underneath the video and I'll get in touch, or write me an email. You can see my email address up here, sethpecksniff99@gmail.com. So you can do either of those things. There are a few different ways you can buy the books, and if you want them, then certainly it won't be hard for me to send them to your email or for you to buy a hard copy. Now, we're doing phrasal verbs again today, and it's because they are a very difficult part of English vocabulary and a very important part. Personally, I like phrasal verbs. I think they're lots of fun, and they're lots of fun to use in your writing and in your speaking. Now, I took these phrasal verbs very quickly. I don't like to spend too long preparing these classes because I've got other classes to prepare for students in online classes. But still, a lot of what I do in these classes, I do in my own classes, really. I ask the student to watch the class before the lesson, and then we activate the grammar or the vocabulary during class. Now, I took all of the phrasal verbs up to here from one article, just one newspaper article. I'm telling you this to really emphasize that we use phrasal verbs all the time. And there are loads of phrasal verbs, new ones, coming into existence every single year. And so it's a really important part of English grammar. But again, I'm pleased to tell you that 90% of the ones on the board are in this book. And I do go into the slight differences, the slight nuances between different kinds of phrasal verbs in this book. So if you want to improve with this vocabulary, please do use this book. So the first thing in the article I was reading, it said that NHS staff hit out at the Clap for Carers scheme. Now, you might not know what the Clap for Carers scheme is. It was a promotion, something that was promoted in the newspapers. We were told that we ought to clap our NHS workers way back in April or sometime like that at 8 o'clock every Thursday, to show how grateful we are that they're working hard in the hospitals to fight this pandemic. Okay, and apparently NHS staff are not happy about this. They hit out at this idea to make us all go outside and clap at 8 o'clock. It was yesterday, actually. It was yesterday evening. And I think it's because many of them are not happy about this Clap for Carers scheme. They feel as though people are going outside and clapping them when they're suffering, when they're going through a very difficult period at the moment. And I think they don't want this kind of attention. So this is the Clap for Carers scheme, and they hit out at Clap for Carers. It means they criticised it. To hit out at somebody or to hit out at an idea or a scheme or a project is to criticise it and say it's wrong, it's silly, it's rubbish. And I think NHS staff were absolutely right to hit out at this obvious piece of PR. Yeah, it's marketing, it's public relations, it's what politicians do to make sure you vote for them, and it's got nothing to do with pandemics or anything like that. So the NHS staff hit out at Clap for Carers. Now, the person who came up with this idea of Clap for Carers, she happened to work in marketing. She happened to work for a political organisation that helps politicians get votes, yeah? Helps companies as well sell products, because that's her job. But of course, there's a lot of PR now, there's a lot of marketing in politics, in our newspapers, where people are trying to sell you a certain idea or a certain belief system, something like that. And the yoga teacher who came up with this idea of clapping for our doctors and our nurses, and she took it from her own country. She was Dutch, I believe. She is Dutch, I believe. And people were clapping for the NHS or for the health service in Holland, and she took this idea from Holland, from her country. So she came up with the idea. This just means she had the idea. Please use come up with ideas, suggestions, things like that. It sounds really good, sounds really natural. Yeah, and so she came up with this idea because she heard about it going on in her own country. But I think it's a PR plan, really. I think everybody understands that this is marketing, it's behavioural science as well, and it's trying to modify people's behaviour. Okay, so we had Run For next. The Clap for Carers campaign ran for 10 weeks. So this run for means goes on for. It means lasts, yeah? But to go on for, to run for, to last, they all mean the same thing, okay? So you can say the course runs for 20 weeks. The course went on for 10 weeks. Yeah, the course lasts 10 weeks. Okay, so the whole topic, the whole article was about whether we should bring back this clap for carers. So when you bring something back, you use it again, yeah, or you bring it back so that everybody's doing it again. And the whole article was discussing whether it's a good idea to bring back this clap or whether it's a bad idea. And of course, many people in the NHS think, quite rightly, that it's a bad idea. Okay, open up dialogue. Now this open up certainly is in this book, guys. Please do understand that most of these words are in this book, and so do buy this book if you're interested in learning these words by heart. To open up means to reveal your true feelings, yeah? So it's the opposite of to clam up. I think I've done to clam up in quite a few other videos. If you clam up, you get nervous and you stop talking. So a lot of people clam up before they're speaking in public. Yeah, they suddenly think, oh, I'm too nervous, I'm getting a bit shy, I don't want to speak in front of a big group of people, and they clam up. But when you open up, you reveal your true feelings. Perhaps you've been keeping them to yourself. Perhaps you're quite a reserved person. Perhaps you're not very sociable. And then suddenly you decide to open up and tell somebody your true feelings. Well, that's very similar to this one, except it was, hopefully this will open up dialogue. Now here it just meant start dialogue, get people discussing these issues. But to open something up means to open it even though it wasn't possible before. It was closed, it was hidden, it was secret before. And so yeah, there has been no dialogue about this topic. I can't remember what it was actually, but there hadn't been any dialogue about this topic. And so the writer was saying, hopefully this will open up dialogue. It will make dialogue possible, yeah? Okay, to set out to do something. Again, this is definitely in the book and it's definitely on my old lesson with phrasal verbs with set. You can see that this, well, I will put this on my phrasal verbs playlist and you've got 137 lessons there on phrasal verbs. So that's a lot of material if you want to go through these phrasal verbs. And to set out to do something means to start a new project, and it's got to be a grandiose project, yeah? You set out to save the world, or you set out to teach everybody English, something like that. It's got to be a big project. It can't be a little thing. When you set out to do something, it means you plan to do something really big, really grandiose. And so here, well, here she said, this is the woman who told us all to go outside at 8 o'clock and clap for the doctors and nurses. She claims, although I don't believe her, she claims that she did not set out to make a political statement. Now, understand what this means. This means she didn't intend to make a political statement. It just means intend here, but to set out to do something, it means to intend to complete a project, a grandiose project, something big, something amazing. And she's claiming she didn't set out to make a political statement, which is a very strange thing to say when you have been photographed with Boris Johnson and your face has been on the front of all of the papers for doing this. Clearly it's a political statement. When you're standing with the Prime Minister, how can you not be making a political statement? Okay, so then I came across stand for something, and you often talk about what values do you stand for? What values do you support? Yeah, what values are you interested in, and do you think that you represent? I can't remember who said this, but somebody said these are not the values that we stand for, meaning these aren't our values. We wouldn't be in favour of these values. Yeah, so also a politician might say something like this: I stand for abortion, but against or for women's right to choose. Let's put it like that. Sounds a bit weird otherwise. I stand for women's right to choose. It means in favour of. Yeah. So what values do you stand for? What values do you support? What values are you in favour of? Now, to call on somebody to do something, this came up in yesterday's class, and that means this is a very useful phrasal verb. It came up, I came across this phrasal verb. It came up in the article, not once, but about 3 or 4 times, as well as call in and as well as call for. So you really want to know your phrasal verbs with call. Of course, there is a chapter in here called Phrasal Verbs with Call. But I have another video up called Phrasal Verbs with Call, and you do come across these ones very often, so they're worth learning. Now, to call on somebody to do something means to publicly demand that this must happen, perhaps because you think it's really important, something like that. So I think yesterday we had Biden called on the mob to pull back, yeah, to retreat, to get the hell out of the White House. So he publicly demanded this. He called on them to do this. Here, I can't remember who called on who. I think it was this lady was calling on people to clap for the carers. It works very well. She called on the people to clap for the carers. But I think in this one she was calling on people not to clap on for the carers if they don't want to, because she wants to distance herself from this, because she's had a lot of abuse, apparently. People don't like being told to go outside and clap, I suppose, at 8 o'clock every evening, especially when the health system is in an absolute state and when the children aren't going to school. It seems ridiculous to clap these kind of things. Now, call for something, it means demand or necessitate. I've got it written over here, and I think in this article the writer said the situation calls for drastic action. Yeah, and so you might say that the situation at the moment, without any healthcare, without any education, calls for some kind of rebellion, and I really think it does. So demand or necessitate for call for something. And notice the difference here. You can say Biden called for the people to pull back, he called for the mob to pull back, or he called on the mob to pull back. So they can be identical. Call on somebody to do something, call for somebody to do something. I'd probably use this one more often, call on somebody. But call for somebody to do something is possible as well. The main difference here is that call for can be used with a noun, something. It calls for drastic action, yeah? Or the situation calls for intervention, something like that. You can have call for and then noun. With call on, you can't. You can't call on and then just have intervention or something like that. You can call on somebody, you can, and just have a person. He called on his uncle, yeah, something like that. Maybe for help, something like that. But it's rare. Usually it's call on somebody to do something, and call for, you can just use a noun after it, okay? Now, to fall for is another really good phrasal verb, and it's definitely in the book. I checked because I thought that's a good one. Have I included that one? And yeah, I had included it. Quite often I see ones that I didn't include, and that's always a little bit of a shame, of course. So, to fall for a trick or to fall for a lie means to be deceived by the trick, to be deceived by the lie. Simple as that, yeah? To be taken in is one that I've just remembered. To be taken in, which is certainly in my book as well. And to be taken in means to be deceived, to be tricked, yeah? And so one of the doctors in the article was saying, look, we have had 10 years of cutbacks. And so this crisis has been brought on by 10 years of cutbacks. Don't fall for the government's lies. Yeah, don't fall for this idea. What it was that they were trying to say that. Well, I think the doctor was trying to say that the newspapers were trying to drive a wedge between NHS staff, medical staff, and the population. And I agree again. The newspapers do this very often. They would prefer to divide rather than to unite. And so, yeah, I agree that really all of this clapping stuff and all of this should we clap, shouldn't we clap, it's there to cause problems between the NHS staff and the rest of the population. So don't fall for it. Yeah, don't fall for all of these tricks, all of these lies, all of these deceptions in the newspapers, on TV, on the internet. Don't fall for them. Okay, to turn on somebody. This can have two meanings, so let's make this clear straight away. Be careful with this one. If somebody turns you on, yeah, and that's not the one I'm doing at the moment, but if somebody turns you on, they sexually excite you. And if something turns you on, it sexually excites you, it arouses you. We're not doing that one, that's one meaning. But turn on somebody is the same as turn against somebody. And that's when you suddenly attack a former ally. Yeah, maybe you've got a friend, you've been friends for ages and ages, but that friend turns on you when you have an argument one night about a £20 note, something like that. And then that friend turns on you and they don't like you anymore. And suddenly there's a lot of animosity between the two of you. So that friend has turned on you. But of course, you might say it about a dog. You might say, that dog has turned, I'm the person that feeds that dog, but it turned on me one day and bit my finger. Yeah, something like that. And the sentence in the newspaper was, the media is trying to turn people. Now, this is important. You can have a somebody between the turn and the preposition. Turn somebody on somebody. And then that means to make somebody attack somebody else. So here, the media is trying to turn the population, the people, the UK public, on key workers. This was the point the doctor was trying to make. He was saying that the media is trying to make us all enemies, to try to turn people on the doctors, to try to make people angry with the doctors and make the doctors angry with the people. I think you get this all the time with schools, with teachers and with parents. Very often the newspapers would like to see a certain amount of conflict between these two groups because they're much easier to manipulate when you've got them at each other's throats. And the same goes for health professionals and patients. They're much easier to manipulate when you've got them, when you have turned them on each other. Yeah? Okay, we've got set off fireworks. Everybody likes setting off fireworks, don't they? I certainly do. I love having a firework party. And we set off some fireworks on fireworks night here and had a small party with some of the kids' friends that came round. And I think kids always love fireworks. So you can set off fireworks, you can set off an alarm. If you're a burglar and you try and get in the house, you try and break into the house and you set off the alarm, that means you're not happy because you've made the alarm start ringing and you need to run away as quickly as possible. But you can also set off a bomb or set off a mine. Yeah, a mine is a type of bomb. If you stand on it, you set it off and it explodes. So when you set something off, it means activate it, but it's for alarms, bombs, fireworks, that kind of thing. And I should mention that you can let off fireworks as well. It's the same as set off. They're so similar in sound, it seems like both are okay for it. Okay, join in means participate. So I didn't join in the clap for carers, as you've probably guessed. I didn't think it was right to join in for something when everything was getting worse and worse and worse. And I mean hospitals. I mean worse for the doctors, worse for the nurses, and worse for the patients. I think it was worse for everybody. And of course, this is why I'm so angry about it, and it's why I'm speaking out about it now, speaking out against this ridiculous home imprisonment. Okay, if you call in somebody, it means you need them to perform a service for you. So you can call in a plumber. if you've got a blocked toilet. You can call in an electrician if all of your fuses have gone, or half of your lights aren't working and you can't figure out why. You might call in an electrician. And Trump claims to have called in the National Guard. The National Guard are the soldiers that protect the country. They're domestic soldiers. They don't go to other countries to fight, but they stay in America. And Trump claims to have called in the National Guard. Some people say he made that up. I don't know, don't care. Call for something, we've already done it. The situation calls for drastic action. Yeah, the situation calls for drastic action. It means it demands action right now. And at the end of the article, there was somebody passed away, somebody died. Yeah, and a nice euphemism for die, yeah, a nicer way of saying it is to say pass away. Okay, that's a euphemism for die, to pass away. And die can sound a little bit harsh, a little bit blunt, a little bit crude. So if you want to put it in a slightly nicer way, you can say pass away. And lock somebody out, lock somebody in is the opposite. If you lock somebody in a room, doesn't sound like you're a very nice person. You are imprisoning that person, so you're locking them in a room. But you might perhaps you go out somewhere, forget your key in the restaurant, and then come back home, and then suddenly nobody's at home. You know, your family have already gone out and they locked the door. They remembered to do so, and so you are locked out. You can't get in. You are locked out. Yeah, nice simple one. Okay, if you have any questions, now's the time to ask them, you know, right at the end, because I just never get a chance to read what's written as it flashes up on my phone for about 1 second or 2 seconds. I just don't get long enough to read them. But if you have a question, please ask now. I will remind you all to buy my books. Yeah, I've got 2 here available. And, you know, if you're interested in following these classes, I will be, you know, following these 2 courses. And so following the videos, if you're following the videos, it might be an idea to get yourself a PDF of either vocabulary, phrasal verbs, or grammar. Yeah, this is grammar in theory and in practice. If you are interested, just write me an email. I can see somebody wrote me an email 2 minutes ago asking about the PDF, and I will send that person a payment link. It will be a PayPal link, as simple as that. And as soon as I get payment on that link, I send it to the email. It happens as quickly as that. Don't think you'll be waiting all day for it. These are PDFs, and so I send them immediately. And the PDFs do have hyperlinks, so you can quickly jump to the answers and then jump back to the page you're on. Both of the books have hyperlinks, and the phrasal verbs is in colour for the PDF as well. So all of the pictures, and there are lots of pictures in the phrasal verbs book, as you can see here. Loads of pictures in that book. They're all in colour in the PDF, and they're in colour in the paperback if you pay 35, which is the expensive one. But they're black. The black and white version's only 20. You know, if it's too expensive, I do recommend then the black and white. The pictures are still good quality in black and white, but in the PDF they're in colour. And if you want a quick look at the chapter titles, here they are, because I showed the chapter titles in the other one, but you've got all the verbs first. You see call up here, so yeah, I wasn't lying. Call, hold, lay, bear, let, work, be, set, keep, go. I've got loads of videos on all of those phrasal verbs as well, and then we go through the prepositions by, into, after, against, together, as, and you've got lots of revision with the antonyms and synonyms at the back. But you can see that that's a lot of different phrasal verbs in there. There's, I think it's about 350 pages of the black and white version, so it's a lot of pages, loads of exercises, and certainly answers. Memorising phrasal verbs, buy my book. Yeah, that's probably the best book tip I could give you to memorise phrasal verbs. Buy my book and do the exercises and watch my videos. But certainly watch them on TV shows. Yeah, I mean, watch them on TV shows. There's loads of phrasal verbs in TV shows. There are loads of phrasal verbs in newspapers, as I've shown you today. But phrasal verbs are everywhere. You don't have to look for a long time to find them. They're absolutely everywhere. And yeah, remembering them, of course, using them is the best way. Speaking them is the best way to remember anything. Okay, so thanks everybody for watching. I appreciate all your support. Please send me an email if you're interested in getting the book, or write a message underneath the video if you prefer, and I will send you a PayPal link. And as long as you send some money to that link, I will send the email directly to you with the attachments, with the PDFs attached. So thanks everybody for watching. Send me that email if you're interested in a PDF, and I hope to see you